Welcome to Dear Arnel Week 9 video blog, 30 minutes length. It's our another episode of Dear Arnel. Just wanted to take some time and just record another episode that I think will be very beneficial for the people who are watching it. These are for business owners, founders, successors, top professionals, sales professionals, anyone who really wants to grow their business, their brand, their networking skills. That's who we're looking for to have listen. So people ask me, "Hey, Arnel, what are you doing this for?" I said, "Well, I want people to know a little bit about me, what's new." I think people only remember what they remember in the past, but not always know what you're doing now or what you want to do in the future. And this creates some kind of curiosity. Also, I like sharing my vast experience as a person professional over the last 25 years. I don't know if you knew that I was a registered nurse. Had a bachelor's in science nursing from Old Dominion. Took me about 10 years to graduate. Became a nurse, did a couple years on a step-down unit in Norfolk General. I believe nursing was in my blood. And they told me nursing is one of the hardest professions when you're going to school because you go through a lot of education. So there's a practical lab, there's a classroom lab, and it's a 4-year degree. It took me 10 years to graduate. That's another story. But I did love my nursing for a couple years, but my calling was in business. Another thing I want to do is I want to share some tips, resources, and ideas and connections, recommendations to help the next business owner succeed in life and business. Either you own a business, work for somebody, but you can still have that business owner mindset. So just want to share some tips, resources, and just be the guy that you can listen to and get some good information that is practical. Either I've done it or somebody else I know have done it. It actually comes from real live people. It's not just conceptual. It's actually, I've either seen it, done it, or talked to people who have. So I'm just bringing it to the forefront. And lastly, I want to be that go-to guy for business networking, referrals, relationship, growing, scaling existing businesses, combating imposter syndrome, burnout, uncertainty, family, high growth companies. I want to be that go-to guy. And people ask me, "Wow, I know you got a lot of stuff." Well, when you've been in the business 25 years and you've worked with startups up to now companies that want to get to about 15, 20 million, you've seen it all. And people are like, what do you like working with? I like working with family-owned businesses in the low middle market in construction, where normally the successors, because successors have a lot of pressure, they usually suffer from imposter syndrome, burnout, uncertainty, how to do it. And they are looking to take that business to the next level. Not doesn't mean I don't work with founders. I've actually worked with founders before because they get close to burnout and uncertainty. And then they have to reevaluate. Either they get out of the day-to-day, or they will decide to sell it or pass it on to their kids and their employee or scale it. So I just like to be that guy. And I tell people, if I don't know the right information, we'll find you the right resource because I'd like you to connect you to people that will benefit you. So for question number 2, I was working with a business owner and we're talking about blind spots in business. And it's interesting. I think the biggest challenge for most business owners, they don't know their blind spots. And secondly, they're not always self-aware what that is. So I found some good articles. So here's an article recently talking about blind spots. So this is 5 common blind spots in the business. So it's interesting. This is from Active Track. So this is the business. So what is some organizational blind spot? This is the business blind spot. So financial blind spots, it's very rare the business owner know their financial management from their P&L, balance sheet, cash flow statement. They don't know their numbers. They don't know their expenses. They don't know how to do forecasting. So one of the things is that financial management, and that is really where our cost of jobs sold, project profit margins, that can make and break a business. It's very rare do you have somebody who knows the numbers. I find that companies that have someone who knows the numbers or outsource that to review the numbers with them can grow a lot faster and quicker. And I've seen companies who don't pay attention to that. They're really barely making a living, and they find out they run out of money, don't have money, and they wonder why, because they're not very good at financial blind spots. And you just sometimes won't admit it. So a lot of times, I have clients, that are really good at financial part of their business, and they either have an outside source and they're very good at it, and then have some clients are not. So we really have to find them a great CPA, somebody who meets with them in a closeout, looks at their numbers. Now, as a business coach, one of the areas of financial management, I know what to look for, but I'm not an expert. I actually have people in my team that outsource are very good at that. And then we talk through it, making sure that they know the numbers, bring that person in so they actually understand their business from a financial management point, just not from a sales marketing point or operation product. The other thing that I find at blind spots communication, I find a lot of owners struggle in communicating to their key employees, to the employees. And a lot of it is personality based. They communicate from a perspective that's communicate how I'm going to communicate versus communicate and how the other person needs to hear it. And then the other thing about communication, they don't know how to win or lose or gain clarity. They're not always good in communicating what they want to accomplish or hold people accountable. And this gets really important when you are getting over $1 million in revenue and you have to build what I call your number one. Like I was watching a recent episode of Star Trek Discovery, and they're talking about I need to get my number one. And so, a lot of business owners in the million to like 8 million, they really need to get their number one and build that leadership team. But it's really hard if they really don't know how to lead a team. They don't know how to communicate a team. They don't know how to hold that person or develop that person, or how to train and lead talent. They don't know how, and a lot of it has to do with how to communicate. Capacity blind spots. It's interesting. This is really important. Most people hire people based on capacity, not capability. So they hire somebody that they believe can do the job, but once they hit a ceiling, they can't do more. So what they do, they just hire employees to a certain level. People who are capable will exceed that, and they want to do more. So it's the version of an employee versus a stakeholder, or employee versus talent. Talent always wants to do more. They really want to run the department. Eventually, they want to get some part of ownership in some kind of company. Capacity, nah. They know what they need to work and do work. They're not going to stay at work afterwards. So the biggest challenge is, and I learned this from Dan Martell and Mass Business Coaching, they're not hiring for capability, they're hiring for capacity. And then eventually when they grow, they can't grow anymore because I have some complaints from owners like, well, they're not managing. They don't know how to lead. Well, what'd you hire? Well, we hired a manager. Did you really? Because if you look at the role profile and the job description and the 30, 60, 90 days, there's no 30, 60, 90 days. There's really a job description. We hired somebody who could do the job, but we didn't hire anybody who can actually manage or lead, or did we test that on the front end? And then they're like, well, they don't take ownership of this and that. Did they know how? Were they actually hired for that? Do they know what that means? So a lot of times we can prevent this in the front end. And if we have someone who isn't, then we have to work with them and give them the opportunity that they can, because the company's growing. We need people to become more capable versus capacity. And a lot of times it's very rare you move from people from capacity to capability because they know what they're getting into. And then operational blind spots. I mean, it's interesting. I find out, I was talking to a bunch of business owners. Do you have your processes, right? And process and systems in some type of workflow, some process map, in some type of way that people can come in their role and they know actually, and it's not a checklist. Checklist is I call it, review something before you finish. A workflow tells you to go yes, no, maybe. And it's like, I say a workflow is like a treasure map, right? Tells you how to get to the treasure. If it's not X, go to Y, go to Z, work 10 steps. A checklist says the checklist is like, okay, before I go on this treasure, I have to have these things prepared. So one of the biggest operational blind spots that I see, there's no processes for certain tasks, certain departments, certain roles. You really have to approve that, create processes, systems, and have the right people. A lot of people have standard SOPs, which is great. And I call that an encyclopedia. Really what you want to do is have ongoing software that people can go into. I have clients who actually write the processes out when they train people. The people have to click the buttons, right? Click, 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 to show that it's actually getting done. It's amazing. So now what happens is the person can learn how to do it, but before they can finish the process, they have to click each step. And it's amazing. I have a company that does about 9 million. They have certain processes in a process street so that when they're training people to follow them, they'll follow the process. Some of the owners struggle with that because they know how to get it done, but they don't know how to follow the process. But to train somebody, you can't teach somebody how to get it done because that takes, that's years. That's intellectual institutional knowledge and wisdom to acquire. For training somebody, they just need to follow the steps. Step one, step two. So it's a workflow with a click. One of the best apps I've seen is Process Street that does that for a lot of clients who use that. And then strategic blind spots. What's interesting about strategic blind spots is that most business owners are not strategic. They're not looking at the trends. They're not looking at how I'm going to affect, should I get a line of credit, or do I look for different ways to market my business, or what is my core of business? One of the things in MAPS business coaching they do an economic model is look at your business right now and what's the most profitable of your services. Now, can that be going all year round? You have some things that are not profitable, so you close it down and just focus on this thing, or you have these two or three lines of services and you don't want to grow it anymore, and it's fine. Now, do you expand something else? So you start looking at strategy, right, in how to grow, and you find out a lot of owners are not looking at that. So interesting thing about that's the organizational. So, and that's again, attract blind spots. And there's this one this is from Forbes, which is really cool. It talks about blind spots. And the one thing I like about this is in the SEALs, they have what they call a swim buddy. And a swim buddy is a person who holds you account, helps you identify your blind spots, highlights areas you need to improve with actionable takeaways to get you. There's not a yes man. There will be your hard truths that'll be completely honest with no matter what. The goal is to make you better while improving the overall team. So what they call this a swim buddy. I mean, every business owner should have a swim buddy. And a lot of it that I find out is, I'm going to use this analogy in a lot of my coaching clients, that I'm your swim buddy. I mean, I'm just going to, I call it the insultant. I'm going to tell you the truth if you don't like it, because it's beneficial for you and your purpose and your goals. And you may not like it, but it's not about you liking me. It's about me helping you achieve your goals. Even if the conversation is what we call hot, or it's just maybe annoying, but it's designed to hold you accountable, identify blind spots, identify areas. So this is very powerful. So I think one of the solutions you can is get a swim buddy, get somebody, and it could be a coach, but here's interesting. It needs to be somebody that you respect highly, that they will hold you accountable and you will follow through. And a lot of it, I have clients who see me as their swim buddy because they pay me a considerable amount of money every month to hold them accountable to this, and be honorable to tell them what they don't like and do like, and challenge them. I think it needs to be something where it's a little pressure. It holds you accountable, where you're putting money and time, because this thing can be, I really believe, can be very beneficial if you surrender yourself and buy into having a swim buddy. It can be paid or not paid. I just think paid is better because there's stake in the game. But I think that's one of the resources you can have, and having somebody as your blind spot. And then they have this other article here. Let's see. It's called the 10 ways, which is the 10 ways to recognize your blind spots that can jeopardize your business, which is pretty interesting. Vision. It's interesting. A lot of owners don't share their vision with their staff or their people. So most of them don't know where they're going. So it's just like a job. If you share the vision, they buy in. Number two, a lot of times they don't tie their employees' personal goals to business goals. One of the things we learn in business maps and coaching, when you do a 401, it's a annual, monthly, weekly tracking tool. You tie the business goals because it becomes real to them. So it says allow coaching to generate into fixing their problem. So it helps there rather than be critical, jump in it if you're not spending 34 hours of time coaching. Yeah, that's one of the things they talk about now, is how to coach people. So you want to coach people, and coaching allows people to take ownership of what's going on versus you telling them. They'll do it, but they don't take ownership. And when they need to step up or teach somebody else, they don't have any reason outside they were told what to do. They don't understand the big enough picture. And then secondly, they're not in it as a stakeholder, they're just doing because they're told. The number 5, not building a model of culture of accountability. I find a lot of companies don't have any accountability. That's why they cannot figure out why their employees don't want to step up and lead or take control of their own actions. Yeah, hiring, I find it's interesting about that one too, is owners hire in times of need, not building out a pipeline looking for people. I think Gallup wrote a book many years ago that talks about you're always looking for good people. You should always have a prospect list of good people. So when you're ready to pull the trigger, you can. And I also think you need to have a very dynamic hiring process to acquire talent. I think Matt's business coaching has a class called Leverage Leadership. It's one of the best in, I think, the world on hiring people. That's what I believe took Keller Williams to the largest real estate company in the world, because how they can recruit, hire, and train and lead talent. Number 6, no capturing influence best practices. One of the things that I recommend people to do is get into peer groups of your industry, because you can learn so much from people in your peers, or being a podcast, or being a forum or a YouTube channel. You can learn so much by working with other people in your peers, because they'll show they'll show best practices. This is a really big one. Is you got to be always focused on lead generation prospecting. They say if you're not growing, you're dying, and the only way to grow is to bring in new business. And then allowing methodology and systems to stagnate. I think what happens is sometimes, sometimes I find a lot of companies don't build process systems. The processes and systems are people, and when those people are gone, then it's gone. I mean, all that intellectual knowledge, that experience is gone. I mean, you have to build process systems, and you got to look at, like, for example, AI is coming in, and how do you make AI a part of it? And out here, initial organizational change proactively. I mean, that's a big one. Is how do you do that? That is basically, I find out you have to let the whole company know, and then you break it down in teams explaining it, and you break it down to the lowest person in the team, explain what we're doing, what we're changing, how it affects him. And it's good onboarding experience for new hires. I mean, that's important too, because people hire them, but they don't explain the big vision, where they are, where they want to be, how to develop them. So it's funny, in small business, a lot of people just hire them for a job when they were like, Arnel, why aren't they want to grow? Well, did you explain? Do you have leadership team meetings? Did your departments have meetings? Like, oh no. So you don't have anything to really get them excited about the future. You just have them excited about the job. So those are some blind spots. And I think the most important blind spot I find out is most business owners are not self-aware. They don't know their strengths, weaknesses. They don't know how to adapt or make them change. They don't know how they choose their habits. They don't know their communication style. And most importantly, they don't know how they handle stress. I mean, there's a test called positive intelligence. You test the saboteur assessment and how your mind works with you and against you. I think the best way one of the biggest blind spots is how they're wired, how they lead, how they strengths and weaknesses in that role. And so when I work with people, I have them take a bunch of series of tests. And people are like, really, why is that? Because what I want to do is get to know the person really well and let them get to know the person well, so that when we're making decisions in their business, in their role, they know what strength works for them, what strength doesn't work for them. They know how to handle stress. They're able to bounce back really quickly. They're open to new ideas, because as a whole, you have less blind spots if you're self-aware of what they are, and you're not stressed out, not anxious and frustrated. You're more open to change, more open to strategy. You're more open of changing who you are and how you respond well, not react poorly. So if you have someone help you identify your blind spots and working through it, and you're open to hear it and get some feedback, you'd be amazed how much you and your business will grow, because nothing's holding you back. It's all about what you can control, what you can influence. Nobody else can make you do anything different, make you do anything you don't want to, unless you choose to. Question number 3 is business owner development referrals from networking organizations. One of the things that I used to be the area director of BNI 25 years ago, and Dr. Ivan Meisner, founder, author, keynote speaker, great guy. I've met him several times. He's phenomenal. I mean, the gentleman is amazing. So he wrote, he's called by entrepreneur.com the father of networking. So he wrote an article called The 5 Types of Business Networking Organization. It's pretty prominent. So he talks about these 5 types of business networking. Casual contact, gathering people from different professions, usually in a mixture. Now, there's one in our area called Networking Happy Hour. That's run by Jake Maines. That's a casual contact. Has over 100, 150 people. It's gathering people from many different professions, usually in a mixer environment. It's at a bar. It's pretty loud. People drink. You can meet some different people, diversity there. It's a big group. I met some great people. Haven't been in a while, just because my schedule, but it's also loud and it's really hard to get around. So it's like you're going to meet great people, but you don't know who you're meeting with. You don't know if they're a target market or not. But it's known as the best networking event. But I use it as casual content. Strong contact usually allows one person profession to get together very regularly. That's like a BNI group. They have one person profession. There are certain groups. There's I think there's a group, a commercial real estate called 501, and that's one person profession to get together. So that's a strong contact group. Community service clubs, an opportunity to rub elbows with other very successful people. That's like Kiwanis. That's like Rotary. That is, most successful owners will give time to doing some type of community work. Rotary, Kiwanis, some of the big ones. I mean, if you look at Kiwanis, if you look at Rotary outside, Rotary International, if you go to different countries, like it's the who's who in the country, because they spend a lot of time and effort doing that, and Rotary's done a great job. So that's a great way to do it. Professional association, that's a trade organization, are very specific in purpose. Like if you know your target market, you know what really is worth your time and effort. Professional trade organizations are very specific in the purpose. And the reason they work so well, in my opinion, because you're in front of the target market, you're in front of everybody who works with the people you want to talk to. Like I belong to the Coastal Virginia Business Industry Association, used to former TBA. A good majority of my clients are people in construction. And so it works for me to work with people in there. And I'm involved. I've been involved for 3 years in the membership committee. I meet all the people who are working construction. So it's pretty good, pretty dynamic. It's target market, and it's not only local, it's state and national, And the other one he talks about is online social media, as Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, where network is constant. And I know some people who get business from Twitter. They're heavily active. They post a lot of Twitter. They find groups that are in their niche, and they're able to develop business that way. I know some people who get a lot of business in Facebook groups because they know their niche. Same in LinkedIn. So there's always different type of networking organization. Now, why this is really important? Because if you're networking, you have to choose how many of these will you do. I personally stay in number 4. Trade organizations that are very specific in purpose. Occasionally, I will go to a casual contact. I'm not in. I have like 1 or 2. I think. Yeah, I have 3 professional associations a part of. I'm in a strong contact group, and occasionally I will go into a casual contact, maybe once a quarter. And then the other thing too is, am I on social media? Yeah, but I've developed some relationships. Not many business in there, but I usually stay in the professional trade organizations. And the reason this is really important, and if you look at here, this is the link, it just will help you figure out where do you network, because when people think networking, they'll go to casual first. They go all these mixtures, and they have mixed results. They have mixed results about that. Usually with the mixture, it benefits the person running it, not always the attendees, unless the attendees know how to work it. Strong contact group, that's usually like BNI, leads groups. I mean, as long as they have training to help you figure out how to make it work. Community service clubs, professional. So even if you go out and network, and I have a lot of people that tell me to do that, you have to have a process. You have to be able to develop the process to generate business from it. If not, you're just going there looking for business. You're not building a network, and you're really just eventually wasting your time. So one of the things that I know I've been good at is really developing the network and generating referrals from my activities. Now, it takes a little bit of while, because one of the things I realized, you really have to be good at your messaging, and you really have to be good at what problems or challenges you solve and who is those ideal people. But overall, that is the 5 types. So if you're thinking about networking, you really need to look at which networking events and activities does it fit under, right? And then, which one do you think you need to work, or how do you work it? And if you know how to work it, you'll get a lot of business. Because I find a lot of people networking, and they're keeping really busy, but they're not converting anything to a referral source, referral partner, or business. And without that, you are really just becoming friends versus building a network to help each other. Now, if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me. That's one of the areas I'm very good at, because I had to do it in BNI as a director, and then on my own. The resource that I want to share is, it's a podcast by Gary Keller. He had a podcast a couple years ago called 35 Episodes, Think Like a CEO by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan. It's very good. I mean, a year ago, I was listening to a lot of it, and it really talked about the role of a CEO. Talked about steps of freedom, mistakes, the path of money. This is, think like a CEO. It was really good. I mean, this is an interview with Keith Cunningham. I mean, it was really good about just listening to Gary Keller's mindset, his belief around business. I mean, he's one of the most influential people in the real estate industry. He currently, I believe, has over 100 companies that he owns himself and has partners in. Phenomenal, engaging talent. I mean, this is a godsend if you're looking to listen to somebody who literally has started his business 20 some plus years ago and has been doing it really well and living now as the chairman of Keller Williams International. And he just goes into what he did. So if you're looking to, it's only 35 episodes. So if you're just looking to listen to something that's uniquely different from one of the people I admire the most, I met him probably 2 years ago, phenomenal guy. The story was, I met him, I sent him a thank you note, and his staff sent me a thank you note like 4 months later. And it was amazing. I was sent a thank you note, and please, let me know if you got it. And his executive assistant sent it back to me. It was pretty good. Let me know. I was pretty impressed. He lives what he does. It was a great experience. So if you're thinking about just thinking like a CEO or just want to know what he thinks, 35 episodes. It's only 35. It's the last one was February 13, 2023. So I usually go back and read about the mindset, the models. I go back and reread or re-listen to this. So I hope this is helpful because it's really good. And then the last quote that I give this week is, don't let small thinking cut your life down in size. Think big, aim high, and act bold, and see just how big your life can blow up. Gary Keller. So when I listen to that, he goes, don't let small thinking cut your life down to size. Think big, aim high, act bold, and see just how big you can blow up your life, by Gary Keller. I mean, one of the things I was talking to a couple of business owners and salespeople. Do you know the difference between a default goal and a stretch goal? Like, what is that? A stretch goal is something that you write out that it stretches you. It really pushes you. So for example, if you want to do 150,000 this year, right? In net, shoot for 250 or 300. Wow, it's almost double, Arnel. Well, you write out for double. You figure out how many sales you have to achieve. Your stretch goal is 300,000. Your default goal is 150. Before the 9th or 10th month of the year, you're probably going to hit 200,000. So that means you've already exceeded your default goal and you're getting close to your stretch goal. It's interesting. When you think like that, you think big. You think of all the things I have to do. How do I make my life more purposeful? How do I put the priorities in place? What do I need to say no? So I like this quote, and I believe in it. Is we think small. So in the past, I've had people write their default goal, and they've barely got it. But then when I have people write their stretch goal and they really work at it, they achieve their default goal, and some of them achieve their stretch goals. But then I've had some people at the beginning of this year, they say, oh, no, I'm worried about the economy and that, and they don't write a stretch goal. They write a default goal. I'm like, why did you go backwards? Well, what do you mean? Well, but if statistically you're not going to hit the default goal. Well, what do you mean? Because you're only going to do enough to what you believe you should do. If you hit a stretch goal, you're going to do so much more, and the chances of you hitting that goal, your default goal, will happen sooner or later. If not, what's the purpose of having goals if you're not going to achieve them when you didn't realize I got to have a stretch goal? So I love this quote because he's talking about don't think cutting your life down to size. Think big, act high, act bold. That's what we got to do. And the call to action is, look, if you need any help in business, let me know by commenting below or sending me a DM or see how I can help you. I'd love to just maybe take you out and have coffee, just listen to what your story is. If I'm not the right guy, connect you. Or we can do a Zoom or a Google Meet and just tell me about your story, what's really going on. And I tell people I do a curiosity call. I'm just there to see what you're looking for, what's happening, and see if you ever had any type of support, like coaching or consulting. What did that look like? Are you ready for that? Are you really ready to invest time, money, and resource to do it? Time basically means you have to add more time. You have to work on your business. You have to have thinking time. Number two is you have to invest money. You got to put some money down. It could be anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000. And resource, what resources? You may have to buy some books. You may have to get some pens. You may have to ask people to cover for you. You may have to get a little bit more help of resources in terms of what do I need to make sure. I tell people you're going to have to give up a little bit to get what you want in the long term, because I tell people consulting, coaching, training, all that stuff is an investment into your future, which will pay dividends in the present. And sometimes it takes a little while to get the process moving, but it will. So again, I want you to thank you for watching and listening to the vlog of the Arnel. This is week 9. We appreciate you. Looking forward to you listening to the next episode coming next week, which will be week 10. All right. Thanks, Dan. Bye.